Hello and welcome to my basic Citrine guide for Maddening. So in this guide I want to talk about Citrine, what are some viable options for her in terms of builds, the pros and cons of the units, level of investment, all these sorts of things. So to begin, let's just go over Citrine's bases. So she has 45% HP growth, 10% strength, 40% magic, 25% dex, 30% speed, 20% defense, 40% res, 25% luck, and 5% build. So she's kind of a standard mage archetype. She has medium low speed. I would say it's on the lower end. 30% is pretty low, and most magic classes don't grant that much speed, if any. So she is going to have speed problems, but there is a build that bypasses her poor speed. Her magic growth of 40% is decent, and her starting base magic is also decent. So she has a little bit of an advantage early on, but other units like Anna and Jean can outpace her magic level just because of their insane growth rate. Now, Anna will be able to do it over time. She'll have an extra point of magic on fixed growth, and also I think she has better. I know she does better speed. She has better speed. She has better dex, so she's more accurate, more consistent. But Citrine is still a decent unit. I'm not sure if I would place her in A or B tier. I feel like there's just better options, but she's not a bad unit, and she definitely has some good builds. I think with Dire Thunder, she's probably like A tier, but you'd have to use RNG abuse to kind of create the ring or just get lucky. All right, so let's talk about the passive, Generosity. This actually is a good passive, especially when combined with Celica, because Celica damages you every time you cast a spell. So this allows her to AoE heal, which is objectively useful. But I'm not sure. I think it just heals the amount missing, though, so I think this triggers it, but it might only heal one. I don't know that that's the best thing. And also, I don't think this is, the best use case of some ability, but if she is missing health and you use, a Vulnerary or an Elixir, she will heal adjacent, and it's pretty nice, but it's hard to control in on Maddening mode if you're trying to get her to take damage. With her low speed, she might get one-rounded by a lot of things. It's hard to say that she would be able to tank a hit and then make use of this frequently. If she was like a bruiser who could take hits, I would say this is fantastic, but on a mage, it's just kind of okay. It's super situational, is my point, so. Okay. So, pros and cons of the unit. Pros is that she has high starting magic and decent magic growth, and for basically almost no investment, you have a hard-hitting mage. But cons are the speed and the low dex growth. 25% dex growth is low, so she might have accuracy issues long-term as you hit middle at endgame and maddening. She also does have 5% build growth, which does matter on fixed mode. That's an extra point of build every 20 level ups, which she should hit 1 to 2 times, depending on how often you're using her. So there's really not too much to say about her. She doesn't have huge standout features aside from the starting magic. Her growths are kind of decent in some ways, bad in others. Okay, so level of investment. I would say the main thing you would be doing is using bond ring creation abuse to get her Dire Thunder online. And then you'd want to upgrade the Thunder, so you can see I have Roy on it, and you want to increase its damage. And she'd basically just be like a siege weapon. And she'd always double, and you'd have to keep her away from enemies, which shouldn't be a hard thing to do because Thunder has 3 range, so it's definitely safer to use than other things. But I would say low level of investment. You can do the bond ring creation. I think that's almost mandatory for her. If you don't run it, she's just going to be like a slow mage who never doubles things aside from armor. And even then, she might stop doubling armor late game because of her low speed. But yeah, that's pretty much it for investment. All right, best classes for the unit. I would say it's just magical classes. I want to say Sage is her best class, especially if you run Byleth. That can increase your range with Thyrsus, so that's really huge. Sage also gives her access to staves and increases her damage even more if you have more tome users. So all of this adds up to, hitting as hard as she can. I don't think Mage Knight is the best thing for her. She's probably not going to be fast enough to make use of Mage Knight. Mage Knight really wants the unit to be fast so that they can double. The whole point of Mage Knight is the increased speed growth, the higher speed, and chaos style, and the increase in build. All of this adds up to increasing the speed of the unit. So on a Dire Thunder build, I don't see any reason to use Mage Knight. She also would make a poor Martial Master or High Priest. Well, High Priest, I guess she could be okay at, but she shouldn't be punching things, is my point. If she's punching things, it's not going to be very effective because it averages your strength and magic damage. So when you're punching things, her low strength is going to bring down her base damage. So she basically only can really use tomes. Now her strength growth of 10% does heavily restrict her. So you're not going to be able to do physical classes. Really, she can only be on magical classes, and the only thing she can really branch off into is maybe like Levin Sword Griffin Knight, because Griffin Knight gives, I think, 20... It's either 15 or 20% magic growth. Let's see. Griffin Knight. I have it off to the side. 15%. So that would put her at 55% magic growth. It also could help try to fix her speed. Now, it won't make her double Griffin Knight. It gives her 20% more speed. But it'll put her at 50% speed growth, which is decent. It'll prevent her from getting doubled, and she'll be able to consistently double armor. So Griffin Knight is a good option for her with Levin Sword. Now, the Levin Sword is quite heavy, though, so that could be something that completely negates the speed advantage of Griffin Knight, and something like Wyvern Knight would not be very good for her. You could run Levin Sword on Wyvern Knight, but you don't get the magic bonus. You don't get the increased growth rate in magic, and you don't get speed, so she would just become like a bad strength unit. Paladin would be not too good. Wolf Knight wouldn't be good. Tanks wouldn't be good on her. Yeah, she pretty much wants to go into magic classes. I would say Sage is her best class, and maybe High Priest, excluding punching things. So Sage, High Priest, maybe Mage Knight if you just want to try to get her to be a little bit faster. Maybe Griffin Knight if you want the utility and the flying. But I would just go with Sage. I think you can't go wrong there. That's probably her best class. Okay. Good early passives for the unit. Alright, so I didn't run her in this run, but she's a mage, and I understand how to build mages. It's pretty straightforward. There's nothing unique about her that you really need to build around. Alright, so early game, getting her Canter, if you can get her the SP, is really good. Canter on a Dire Thunder build would be really nice, because then you can kind of push into enemy territory, hit them, push out. It allows her to be flexible. It allows her to avoid getting hit, because one of the things that she will have to worry about is getting focused. If any enemy finds an opportunity to hit her, she's probably getting doubled. Most of the offensive enemies, aside from armors, will double her. So Canter, I would say, is like your number one thing. Momentum's an option if you want to increase her first hit damage, but it's probably worse than Canter. And then on Leaf, if you wanted to go the Griffin Knight route, you could run build early. Now, you could get her build +4 pretty early. This would offset the Levin Sword weight. And then long term, you'd probably want to get speed from Lyn, so you get build and speed, and try to go for doubling. But it's kind of questionable, because you could use Dire Thunder, so probably just do that instead. And then Lyn is decent for speed if you want to try to get her faster, but I don't think it's really worth it. And then other early game things like Micaiah and Celica. Celica can be decent for the magic increase, but it is expensive. I think it's 1k for +2 and then 2k for +3. That does increase her damage though, so I would say I would get either the +2 magic for 1k SP, or I'd get Canter. Canter for flexibility, +2 magic for damage. Okay, equipment. Pretty straightforward. So for equipment, pretty much any L-tome, and also Thunder. So if you're running Dire Thunder, all you really need is Thunder. You could put Roy or Ike on it, depending on how far into the game you are, and then just upgrade it to +5. Hand her the Dire Thunder ring, and she should do pretty well. That's pretty much all you have to do. Throw her on Sage, get her high magic growth, hand her the Dire Thunder ring, get Thunder as strong as humanly possible. Now, Dire Thunder only works with Thunder. It doesn't work with El Thunder or Thoron. So you do need to get that thing's damage up. You could also run crit on it if you want. You could run crit or you could just run might. For crit, I feel like you would want, that'd be more like mid-game because you'd want something like Wrath. You'd want her to be missing some health. You could do that. You would have to have her... Now, you can get her health down safely on enemy mages if they can hit for, like, 10, 12 damage. They will probably double her, but she should be able to tank that. So if you want to get, like, a Wrath going, you would have to safely reduce her health, which could be difficult to do. However, if you run Celica plus Wrath, that could be good, but that's more late game. So you have to beat chapter 22 to start doing that again. But she could, every combat, she's reducing her health by 1. You'd also have to make sure to keep her away from your Dancer, because he will AoE heal within 2 tiles every turn. So if you're trying to chip her health down with Celica, she will start catching heals indirectly from quality time units, from Dancers. So you have to be mindful of that when running crit builds. Other things, like you could run Elwind if you want. Elfire, Elsurge, just for some variety. Her speed should be good enough to one-round armors. Elwind might be situationally useful. Similarly, Excalibur, Nova, these could be situationally useful. Nova can be good when upgraded because it always doubles at least once. And if the base damage is high enough and her base magic is high enough, that gives her access to, some decent non-thunder damage. So if you could run Nova on her, like late game, that would be fine. You can have Elfire and Elwind. Elsurge can be decent to have. It hits pretty hard. It has infinite accuracy. So it always hits. But yeah, this is it for equipment, I would say. Okay. Then early emblem rings for her to run. Celica, Micaiah, these are both fine. Micaiah gets her staves early. This helps her level up. This helps her get SP. Micaiah increases her damage. Or I'm sorry, I have that backwards. Micaiah gives her access to staves. Celica increases her damage. So that's really the 2 I would run on her. You could also run Sigurd on her, just for like canter and repositioning. If you find that she's like in bad situations where she's able to get attacked and spiked too frequently. But canter is usually better on one of your physical units. Some people run canter on Sigurd on Saline early on to some degree of success. Pretty much anyone on Sigurd will be effective because as long as you pop Sigurd and equip Rider's Bane and stab a horse, it'll probably kill it. But Sigurd could be okay. Marth could be okay, especially if using Mercurius. A lot of people are adopting Mercurius strats where they get a few units bond level with Marth to 10 and then immediately start killing things with Mercurius to power level them. That's probably optimal. It's definitely something you have to go out of your way to do. So if you want to do that, knock yourself out. I'm probably not going to do that because I feel like it would make the game way too easy. But it is viable. It is a legit strat. So you can do that early if you want to power level her. But aside from that, she's a good mage. Just throw her on Sage, get her Dire Thunder. You're going to probably have to use RNG abuse. I don't use RNG abuse I did on one run, and honestly, it does take some time, and it's just kind of like annoying. It can take up to like 30 minutes to get the specific ring you're looking for because you have to keep reloading saves. So it's definitely not something that's quick. And you might get lucky, it might only take a few minutes, but it also is technically an exploit. So yeah, that's it for my Citrine guide. I think she is a strong unit with Dire Thunder, but you have to do the Bond Ring exploit or just get lucky. Alternatively, if you want to try her on Mage Knight to try to fix her speed, she's going to have a hard time doubling, but you could probably put Lyn on her, and she would need Speed Taker. She would need speed plus like 3 to 4, like Speed Taker from Lyn, not as a passive you buy. And then you could also run build if you want to run like 11 sword build or Bolganon. So yeah, so if you want her to not be on Dire Thunder, you probably want to go to the Mage Knight route, throw Lyn on her, and then she can actually double things. but that'd be taking away Lynn from Ivy and other units that make good use of her. So yeah, that's it for this one. She's a solid unit. Thanks for checking this out. Definitely like and subscribe. Feel free to drop a comment if you have any cool tactics you use with Citrine, and I will see you in the next one.